Hi folks, I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hello everyone, I'm Ken Calvert, alongside Father Joseph Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to the Father Joe Grimaldi Podcast. The Father Joe Podcast is proudly supported by Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield. Experience the Star Treatment. If you're in the greater Detroit area and you're looking for a new Lincoln, then Star Lincoln is the only answer. Whether you crave a new Lincoln MKC, Lincoln MKX, the classic Lincoln Navigator, or the awesome Lincoln Nautilus, the spring savings sales event is going on now at Star Lincoln, and that means additional savings on every Lincoln in stock. Get the Star Treatment. You deserve it. Give them a call, drop on by, and you'll see why. They've been in business for decades. Both Father Joe and I are driving the Lincoln MKC, and I love mine. In a hurry, shop online, starlincoln.com. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln, 12 Mile and Telegraph in Southfield, home of the Star Treatment. Do you know what evangelization is?
I can talk about it.
Did you know that you and I are evangelizing right now?
I hope we are.
We're doing our best.
I hope we are.
Yeah. And you know why I bring this up? You probably don't.
No, I don't.
Well, because I pay attention to the Catholic News Agency. And earlier this morning,
yes,
our
Francis spoke.
That's right. Our Pope Francis, he gave me a call. And he said, Ken, here's what I want you to talk about today on your podcast. I said, fire away, please. Anything I can do for you. He said, I want you to talk about what the brothers Cyril and Methodius did with the Slavic nation. I want you to teach them how to be evangelizers.
Correct.
All right? So you and I are going to talk to the masses that subscribe to, for free, and listen to the Father Joe podcast, how we can all be evangelizers and continue with the process of evangelizing as many people as we possibly can.
I think there are many definitions of evangelization, because to start with, from the time we get up in the morning to the time we go to bed, we are evangelizing, whether we know it or not. And by that I mean, because of what we say and do, we are evangelizing. People are looking at us one way or another. They say, wow, he's a Christian, that's what it means to be a Christian, and therefore I should know more about that. So we are evangelizing by the way we act, by the way we don't cheat others, by the way we can accept others who are marginalized, by the way we can reach out to the people in need. So what I'm saying is this, from the morning to the nighttime, we are evangelizing. One of the readings yesterday, in the first reading, the Acts of the Apostles, was the story of Stephen. Stephen is the first deacon in the church, and he caused an upheaval among the people. They hated him, they took him out of the walls of Jerusalem, and they were going to stone him. And the crowds were really rebelling like you wouldn't believe. They hated this man. They were going to kill him. And so as they're going through that, there's a fellow in the background. His name is Saul, S-A-U-L. And he's there watching what's going on. As we all know, Saul was the great persecutor of the Catholic Church. And yet, for some reason or other, something happened to Saul at that moment when Stephen was being stoned to death. He was inspired. He was inspired by the example that was set by Stephen. Stephen's fidelity, his loyalty, his love of the church, his love of Christ, inspired Paul secretly. Now, it wasn't until much later, as Saul is on the road to Damascus, when he is taken back and he says, wow, I should be someone preaching Christ, not persecuting him. And it was then, more or less at that time, that his name was changed from Saul to Paul. So what I'm getting at is the idea that we are an example to others, in the way we lead our lives, in the way we interact with others. And so that we're always an example. You know, it's a great onus to believe that, my God, whatever I'm doing, somebody else might be watching and might be affected by it. And so I do believe that's true. Evangelization, as I said, has many meanings. It can certainly be evangelization in the form of formal education. But I think the best kind of education is example, by the way we lead our lives, by what we say and do.
Is it as simple as, go ahead, you take that parking space? You know what I mean? You're in a situation in a parking lot. Can you really make it simple by holding a door a little longer to let a couple of seniors go walking in before you, knowing full well that they're going to slow down your day a little bit? There's going to be a process here. Instead of like getting around them to get in before, whew, those people nearly beat me in here. I would have been standing here forever.
I really like what you're saying, because yes, it's little things like that. Build them up, and you have terrific example that you're setting for humanity, because everything we say and do has an effect. It has a ripple effect. The idea of a ripple effect is something that starts very simple, and it catches on, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and you never know how far it's going to reach out, because we can't see what the ripple is in the ocean or the lake or whatever the case might be. So one of the things I like is this. Right now, today, in the church, there is a great emphasis on unleash the gospel. And unleash the gospel is a way of educating even the Catholics themselves, the Christians themselves, on the meaning of how they live and what they do, the meaning that has in being representatives of Christ on earth. And so if that's what our goal is, our mission is, that we should be the people who bring Christ to others, it all has to do with what we say and what we do. And so a little thing like you brought up, holding the door for somebody or whatever the case might be, has an effect on somebody else.
There's not enough of that right now, I don't think.
No.
I think people have really become strident and locked in their ways. I think a lot of people are just rolling basically angry. I don't get it. I mean, I do my best to not. It's interesting that you would say that evangelization can be as simple as just being a good person the moment you get up, till the moment your head hits the pillow.
You know, when we get
There's
up in the...
certainly other things you can do. I mean, a lot bigger and better. Hey, let me share the good word.
Oh, now, see, that's a whole different kind of evangelization.
Sure, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
But when you get up in the morning, when I get up in the morning, we're faced with lots of decisions.
Yeah.
Some of them are very simple. Am I going to have cornflakes or bran flakes? Or am I going to sit in this chair or that chair to read the paper?
Yeah.
But we have simple choices. But some of them have to do with morality. Am I going to choose to do this, which is not the best thing to do, or to choose that, which is the best thing to do morally? And throughout the day, especially if we're involved with business interactions, with your company, with your corporation, or whatever the case might be, whether it comes with even interacting with the family, there might be choices that you have to make. So we're making choices all the time. And the choices we make, they're being observed by others, not directly, but people see them and they say, wow, that's what you're supposed to do.
You hear that a lot, or read that a lot, where, and I don't mean obituaries, but you often hear people say, oh, you've never met Father Joe Grimaldi? Oh, you love him. He's just a genuine great guy. I mean, he'll do anything for anybody. You hear that?
You said the wrong word. It's not Father Joe Grimaldi. It's somebody else.
Okay. Well, I don't know who you're talking about, but anyway. But I'm just saying, when you hear that, you feel better about the person that you don't even know, because he sounds like a wonderful person. She sounds like an incredible human being. Mm-hmm. So in being that person that you can imagine, that person then must be evangelizing or an evangeler to other people. because
Correct.
she's basically spreading some good word with her good vibes, as we used to say. The Beach Boys had that beautiful song, I'm giving out, she's giving out, he's giving out good vibrations.
I like that.
It's a wonderful, wonderful song.
Somebody who truly follows Christ, whether it be not just, but following Christ in the formal religious aspects, going to church, saying prayers, how he interacts or she interacts with her family, his family, and I think making decisions that affect the family. These people, by what they do and what they say, are speaking to the public.
The deacon, getting back to Stephen, the deacon, the original deacon, I have two questions for you. Deacons, they are not unlike priests, the ultimate evangelizers.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because originally what happened was the orphans and the non-Roman, the non-Jewish, I should say, Christians, many of them were not being taken care of. The widows were just abandoned, the farmers, the orphans needed help, and things of that sort. And so the community then, this is the early church, not too long after Jesus rose from the dead, and people started to say, hey, we better have some help. We need help, because these people are being abandoned. And so they established, just spontaneously, the order of deacons. And the order of deacons, well, like you said, were to preach the word, but they are also people that have a specific ministry. So, for example, depending on what church you go to, a Catholic church I'm speaking about, but depending on the church, they'll have different ministries. Now, for example, some deacons, they're asked to take care of the people in the hospitals. So they do a lot of hospital visits. Other deacons are asked to bring the Eucharist to the homebound. So they may take the communion to the people that are not able to get to church. Some deacons preach the word at Mass. As a matter of fact, very often you will see a deacon who usually is the one who reads the gospel if he's present, but then very often is the one that gives the homily. So they're preaching as well. So, you brought out a very interesting point there, because, yes, the deacon does preach the word directly to the people, and he does it indirectly by the good example he gives and reaching out to those who need help.
Unleash the gospel. Is that a Detroit mantra?
Well, it's the...
Is that Archbishop Vigneron's proclamation?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is.
That's not a nationwide proclamation.
No,
okay.
No.
Unleash the gospel is Archbishop Vigneron's.
Well, try to bring the full meaning of the gospel to the people. Many Catholics don't know what Catholicism is.
Well, that's another podcast. It really is.
It is.
Title alone, that would attract some listeners.
Well, we've covered some of that.
Yeah.
Because
we have.
Yeah.
But go ahead. I'll let you finish your
thought.
thought.
I'm just thinking many Catholics don't even know what their tradition means. They don't even know what their tradition entails. Oh, they know they're supposed to go to church on Sunday, and then that's it. This type of thing. They know that they should go to confession once in a while. They know they're supposed to receive communion. And they really don't know, first of all, what it is and why we do it. So it's good that people learn, either directly or indirectly. Directly, as many of the churches are having town hall meetings where they have open discussions on the various practices of the church. Other churches may have lectures by a particular priest or missionary. He'll come in and speak to the people. Other churches will use the gospel itself on Sunday, that the priest, first of all, proclaims, but also will preach on it, and therefore try to give the people a deeper understanding of their faith. So, unleashing the gospel, it's one of these terms that sometimes people don't fully understand, but trying to not completely, we'll never do that until we meet the Lord, but I think more fully understand what our religion is all about. What does it mean to know the gospel, and how do we put it into action? It's easy enough to say, I can preach the gospel. Not so easy, can I carry it out in what I do?
So you unleash it, and you make it easier for me to understand.
I hope so.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we try and do with the podcast.
Yes.
You sort of try and put that situation into real life situations right now.
Exactly.
Do you ever, I was thinking about this when you were talking about Stephen and Saul, later to be Paul, do you ever see a time down the road adjusting the scripture, maybe making it a little more applicable to the times of the here and the now? Do you see it becoming a little more fluid and easier to understand terms, or will it always be basically locked forever within the actual verbiage of the passage?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'm going to answer it that way, only because I don't think we can play with the scripture. It's there. That's what it is. But it's up to the creativity of the preacher. It's up to the knowledge of that preacher to be able to explain it on Sunday after he proclaims it. And so, yes and no, because that's the job of the priest who is preaching, or of the deacon who is preaching, to try to be creative enough to use the gospel that's been proclaimed, and just as it is in Scripture, but then bring it to the year 2019 in this particular setting of Royal Oak, or whatever the place might be, and so try to make it as present to the people as possible.
A lot of times in Hollywood, they will say, well, give me a draft of what you want this movie to be. And that may be anywhere from 25 to 80 pages.
Yeah.
All right. And then they may want to call it a treatment. There's lots of room for changes. But is there a way for me to take the gospel, leave it exactly the way it is, and expand it to really make it a bigger picture? Work with me, people. In this case, they're saying Joseph and Mary. Let me put it in layman's terms for you. Here's how this should play out for you guys. That's basically what you're doing with a homily, right?
Oh, God, yes. I agree with you. I mean, that's the important thing.
You're trying to capture the moment of that gospel and put it up on the big screen and have people come away saying,
and make it relevant to the people.
I love it. I love what he did there.
It has to be relevant to the people, or else it doesn't mean anything.
Sometimes there might be a priest that isn't able to capture that, though.
Sure.
It might just be, here's what it says, and by the way, here's what it says. Instead of saying, let me put it in terms that you may better understand. Because you have the ultimate job of evangelizing, being the evangeler.
That part of it, yes.
But each one of us is supposed to take that message and go out in our daily life and become subsets to your evangelizing and become our own evangelizing human beings.
You couldn't have said it better. And let me say this, Ken. When you go to Mass on Sunday, you are fed by the Eucharist, but you're also fed by the Word. And when I say by the Word, it's both the Scripture and the way it was preached, the creativity that was used to get it across. Those two things, you are being fed. Now, once you go outside the doors, that's when you put it into action. That's where you are able to interact with people, and you show people that you want to treat them the way you want to be treated, and you want to love the way you want to be loved. And so it's very important that they use what they get inside the church and put it into action outside the church.
That's a really good idea, that you should pay close attention to the homily. Put it into action. Well, I think we did a nice job of evangelizing here.
I hope so.
We're a couple of evangelizers, and
Cyril, you're doing a great job.
Let me tell you, Methodius, you killed it. You absolutely crushed it today.
I don't know about that.
All I did was look up. It was gone. All right? It was well hit from the minute you hit it. You struck it, and you hit it, and it was long gone, as the great Ernie Harwell used to say. Thank you for joining us on the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Joe Grimaldi. We'll see you next time.
Look forward to it. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.